Did you have chores?
Oh, you bet. We milked 8 cows, and so we milked them by hand. And so every morning you'd have to go down and milk the cows, and most generally you.
Was that before school?
Oh yeah. And so when we did that, a lot of times the cows would kick us, and then we'd have to go change clothes again, and we'd have milk all over us, and it was not a good scene. We had to do that 7 days a week, and we didn't have any time off. But we gathered cobs for the stove because that was the quickest way to get the stove fired up. And then
where did you get the cobs from?
Well, we had corn shellers back in those days, and so we'd pick the corn by hand and then run it through the corn sheller. And when that corn sheller took the corn off, then they had the cobs, and we always had a cob pile most generally during the wintertime, and then we would burn them in the kitchen stove, and that's how we heated the stove to do the cooking on.
And so, did you have an acreage to have corn growing?
No, we had. My father bought. What was it? 235 acres, I think it was, for $65 an acre, and it was east of Larrabee, and it was rolling hills. It was not very good farm ground, so we grew corn and we grew beans and hay and things of this nature. But then we had some horses. We had a team of horses. We borrowed one of the horses from our neighbor, and we had one horse, and we hooked up the wagons, and that's how we did some of the chores as well. But we had some hogs and some chickens, so we grew pretty much our own food in gardens and things of this nature.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Did you have some chores, Mom?
Yes, I did. My sister and I, we were in charge of bringing the cobs into the house.
And which sister?
This would have been Joyce. She was 4 years older than I was. And my dad kept the cobs in, I suppose it would be like a
little shed.
Yeah, some kind of a shed.
Yeah.
And so we'd go out and get the cobs, and also we had eggs to get. Oh, I hated to get those eggs because we had so many laying hens. So I improvised a bit and got a stick to put over their heads so they wouldn't pick me. And that was another one. And for a while, we had to haul water in the house and water down into so the cows could drink when they came in to be milked. But when we finally got electricity, it changed an awfully lot of things on the farm, and it was for the good. But I enjoyed helping Dad out in the field. I was always driving either the horses, or we had one tractor to bring in the hay. And I didn't even have to worry about steering the horses, because the horses, they already knew where they were going to go. So I just held on to the reins and let them go. Had a good time.
So you've grown up now, and how did you get acquainted with each other?
Well, there was some fellows from Larrabee. We went down to the skating rink, and so when we were in the skating rink, we saw some of the girls, and so we started to skate, and we'd switch partners, and I was not the best of skaters, and I say that I fell for real the first time, and I think I fell right smack dab over with the skates on there. And so after the skating deal was over that night, I asked her, I said, well, can I help you take your skates off? And she said, yeah. So I went over and helped her take her skates off and put her shoes on, and I said, if I come up sometime, would you go with me? And so we had a central office at that time for telephone, and you had to crank this crank and then get the central lady, and then after the central lady, she'd hook us up to the Calumet line, and then they had a lady there running as an operator, and so everybody listened in when we were conversing with one another. And I asked her to go to a football game over to Aurelia, Iowa, and she said yeah. So that was our first date. It was on, I think it was on Friday the 13th.
And what did you drive at that time?
I
Go pick her up.
I borrowed, I think, my brother-in-law's car, if I recall. And
Which
it,
I
brother-in-law?
didn't know that.
I think it was Bob Simon, my brother-in-law, and I think I borrowed his car, if I recall. I might have had a car at that
I
time.
thought you had a Plymouth.
Well, yeah, we got that later on, though. But yeah, I don't remember that night. But we finally got a car.
Were you pretty nervous?
Not really. It was a pretty good game, and then after that we went over to a place, and all of our friends were over to a place where they danced and things like this. And
Over to a house?
no, it was at a hall, and I wasn't a very good dancer either. But anyhow, we got by, and so that's pretty much our first date. Anyhow,
The dancing part came a little later than that.
did it? Okay.
He's
Well,
got-
we were that was 60 years. We've been married for about 60 years, so we're learning yet.
Okay, so Mom, you tell the story. Where did you meet? And what do you remember?
Well, I had just broken up with a fella that I'd gone with for a couple of months, I guess, and my folks always went to Cherokee on Saturday night, and so of course I went along. And while I was there, their daughter was home. Her husband was in the service. And so she and I were bored. We decided to walk down, which was only about 3 blocks, down to the roller rink. And so we started roller skating. And here these 5 boys came in, and I didn't pay any attention to them, but they all decided to roller skate too. And they all knew me from Larrabee, was only about 15 miles probably from
About 7 miles.
7 miles
Yeah.
from Calumet, and being so close, the teams, like the basketball teams and so forth, played each other. And these boys knew me better than I knew them, I guess, and they tapped the boy on the shoulder, and then the next guy would skate with me. And
She was a cheerleader at Calumet, and so we were basketball boys, and so that's how we knew something about them anyhow.
But anyway, of all the skaters, Dick was the worst. Because I
That's
just
true.
knew every time we went around the end of the skating rink, we were going to fall, or he was going to trip me or do something. And but he was the one that was bold enough to ask me if I would go with him, if he'd come up. And I said, well, just try it and see. And that was, and I waited, I think it was several months before I got a phone call from him. And so we went to a football game. That was our first date.
And you did not go dancing.
Not that time.
Are you sure we didn't? I think we went down to that hall after the ball game for a little bit. Leland Anderson was down there. Yeah, I think so. She can't remember very good.
I knew what I was getting.